Can Nathaniel Essex and Rasputin IV, his greatest creation, ever hope to find his stolen lab and repair the broken timeline? Well, let's hop into the pages of Immoral X-Men number 3. A continuation of the Sins of Sinister event and find out together, shall we? Alrighty, so then as we join the book, we are now officially 1,000 years into this Sinister timeline. When we last left off, Rasputin IV and her creator, Mr. Sinister, were on the run from the Red Diamond Empire. They had a ship, they had a crew, and they had a mission, only now they don't have the crew, the ship is barely holding together, and their mission has taken them over 900 years to complete. That all sounds pretty bad, but at least things are equally bad for the Red Diamond Empire. It seems that after mutant kind had completely destroyed all of their enemies on the galactic scale, they did what any self-respecting Sinister would do. They splintered into multiple different factions and opted to fight each other. Rasputin IV notes that isn't it funny how mutant kind created Krakoa so they would no longer have to live in fear of hate and fear, though despite mutant kind becoming the dominant species in the universe after all, there's still plenty of hate and fear to go around, and clones, many more clones. You'll recall at the end of the last issue, Exodus had actually killed Hope Summers and succeeded her as the brand new religious figure amongst the Red Diamond mutants. Well, apparently he was able to gain so much power in the last 1,000 years. The Red Queen Emma, the protector of the Dream Professor X, the leader of the Super Soviets Colossus, and Kitty the Pirate Queen all vowed to clone their own Exodus and keep them around as sort of nuclear option war deterrents. Meaning that 1,000 years later everyone hates each other but no one can really kill each other yet. Rasputin IV goes to a prayer world, one of the worlds that powers up the Exoduses, in hopes of finding a clue regarding Sinister's missing lab hidden somewhere within a psychic message that only she can read. The mission is a success, but Rasputin IV and a very haggard Mr. Sinister end up getting chased out of that quadrant of space by a giant Exodus, and if this looks familiar, it absolutely should, because Kieran Gillen totally planted the seeds for this scene all the way back in an early Immortal X-Men story. The psychic message's coordinates, which actually leads our two, well, heroes isn't the right world, to an old gramophone cylinder. A very retro piece of tech left for Mr. Sinister by Irene Adler Destiny. Basically, this message is a confession. Irene revealing to Sinister that she was actually the one who masterminded the theft of the Moira clones in the first place, if only because she loved Mystique so much. She'd happily live in this hell of a timeline if it meant that she could just spend the most amount of time with the woman she loved, because after all, how could that possibly be a hell? Man, the achingly romantic things they write for Destiny and Mystique. The message is also something of a last will and testament too, saying that if Sinister is hearing it now, it means that Destiny is almost certainly dead, but that from beyond the grave, she hopes to help Sinister repair the timeline once and for all. Destiny even says when things are back to normal, Sinister should most definitely look Destiny up and tell her everything that happened, but she also has to rub a little salt in the wound too, saying that out of all the future she's seen, and she's seen basically all of them, Sinister never actually succeeds in becoming a Dominion and existing outside of time and space like he always wanted, and this news really pisses him off. Rasputin IV picks up on these negative vibes and comes to the very sad realization that despite how much it appeared that Nathaniel Essex has grown, he never actually intended to not try this all again at some point. It's with something of a heavy heart Mr. Sinister ends up ejecting Rasputin IV from their craft, saying that she is indeed his greatest creation, gifted with the most amazing mutant powers, but not flight. With an officially lightened load, Sinister is able to continue to follow the trail set by Destiny all the way back to the cursed Earth, which has now become a cancer-ridden nightmare realm. It's there in a deep, dark, dank cave that Sinister manages to come upon the last Doombot. In fact, I think this is the Doombot who is implied to have actually taken over Latveria for the mutants early on in the Sinister timeline. But he's not the one that he's looking for. Who Sinister is really looking for is actually Robo Moira, who naturally was able to survive the purging of Orchis and has just been laying low here on Earth. She's actually pretty shocked and horrified to learn that Sinister cloned her and in doing so created this dark and twisted timeline that they're in right now. But the truth doesn't bother her enough to not want to join forces with Sinister in hopes of putting things back to normal and giving her and Orchis a second chance to destroy the mutants for real this time. Now, unfortunately for all of them, it seems that the Doombot was actually being watched by Beast, the chained scientist of the Red Empress, Emma Frost, who in this 1,000-year Sinister future we see has actually replaced the diamonds on her skin with Cyttorak diamonds, meaning that anyone she knights becomes a juggernaut dope. Hell, Empress Emma was so busy fighting the other former members of the Quiet Council, she had basically completely forgotten about the Doombot and Mr. Sinister. Beast only brings it to her attention to try and earn her favor. Which, honestly, I gotta admit, I kinda love the fact that even in this messed up future, Emma still got the last laugh over her most hated rival in Beast. Empress Emma calls to arms her legion to go on one big final attack, and also asks for her highest heals so she can plunge them through the heart of Sinister. You ever read a thing and go, that's not my kink, but I'm almost certain that's someone else's kink out there? Now, Sinister needed Robot Moira because she was actually able to track her own unique genetic signature all the way back to where the Moira clones in the secret lab used to be. Of course, I'm talking about the World Farm, former home of Stellaris Orberus, who seems to not be home right now and his entire space station in flames. It would seem that 1,000 years in the future, Storm and her rebel brotherhood actually did a real number on this place. In fact, the whole station is currently being watched over by John Ironfire, Aurora's right-hand man. As Sinister and his motley crew discover, this place actually has religious significance to the members of Storm's group, saying that if this place were ever to fall, it would usher in the end of their kind. And I mean, despite everything, these guys have actually been beating the odds on everything so far, so if they're scared, it must be for good reason, right? Now, hey, what happened to Rasputin 4? Well, she's still floating through the cold, dark, empty vacuum of space currently. Her superior chimera mutant physiology being just enough to keep her alive, but not good enough to actually help her get anywhere. Needless to say, she's feeling pretty pissed and pretty hopeless right now, and it's in that moment a mysterious voice reaches out across space to speak with her, promising her revenge, if only she's willing to sign on the dotted line and make a deal. Now, this voice is left pretty mysterious, but if I had to guess, I would say it's probably Mother Righteous. But to find the answer to that question, we'll probably have to read the 3rd issue of Nightcrawlers coming very soon. And so that was Immoral X-Men issue number 3, everyone, and I gotta say, Sins of Sinister just continues to impress at every turn. Gillen and company really are just writing their asses off on this one, trying to wring every bit of juice they can from this dark and twisted alternate timeline. Again, we've seen lots of alternate timelines in comics and even more in X-Men, but this one really does manage to have a unique flavor all of its own. I think this issue does a good job shining a light on what very well could be an end result if Krakoa continues to expand and advance too quickly. Hell, the Island Paradise already has factions within factions, and the mutants already love a good schisming, so who's to say all of this couldn't end up happening in its own time anyway. More than anything though, what I really appreciate about this series is how it really puts the character spotlight on Mr. Sinister, allowing him to be both antagonist and protagonist at the same time. There's just something so wonderfully petty about him actually making a change and trying to do some good when he thought that he could actually just have a second crack at becoming a genetic dominion like he always wanted, but now that he knows that's not the case and he won't get what he wants, he seems a-okay just blowing everything up right now. Rasputin 4 continues to impress me too. I get the feeling a lot of people are actually really liking her as a character, and I hope they find a way for her to stick around, or at least to show up in the main timeline sooner rather than later. Overall, I'd give this one another very solid 8 out of 10. Sins of Sinister continues to be one of the most consistently good and readable comic events I've had this year.
Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.